Hi, this is Gary with Benchtop Studio. Today I'm going to be talking about the Bucktool DC30A dust collector. This is a wall mount dust collector, but it also comes with a set of wheels, so you can put it on the floor, roll it around. It comes with an 80-inch hose, however I found that to be closer to about 70, maybe 72, so they kind of shortchange a little bit on the hose. In general, the hose also feels a little flimsy, not as solid as some of them that I've seen out there. A number of other items in the box, and then of course the actual tool itself. Getting it out was pretty easy, fairly well packaged. The first thing I did was look it over and look for any problems with it. The back part of it definitely has a hanging bracket. You could obviously use a bolt and put it right up against the wall, or there's an included bracket which helps offset it. I did notice the motor mount was a little bent at the bottom. That was kind of strange, and there was a little chip in the finish on the unit itself. Nothing that prevents it from working, but just kind of a little bit of poor quality there. It comes with a set of wheels. It comes with, of course, a bag. It's a 2 micron. 1 micron would have been nicer, but 2 will work. It comes with a mount and a gasket that fit over the intake. And then it comes with this little bracket here, which was covered in oil or cosmoline or some type of gooey, messy, nasty substance. If you mount that to the wall and then hang the dust collector off that mount, you're able to keep the wheels on it. Otherwise, you'd have to take the wheels off if you flush mount it to the wall. So I started with putting the wheels on, pretty easy. They fit right on, a little lock washer, a little nut, tighten them up, and that was it. And pretty much went as expected. There's a rubber gasket that goes over the output of it, which goes into the bag. And then there's a small metal piece that goes over that with a little grid on there. I'm assuming that's to prevent large chunks from going into the bag. Although by then they've already gone through the impeller, so they should be pretty well busted up. But one of the problems I had mounting it was that you have a little bolt, a lock washer, and a nut that goes on there. And the bolts are just barely long enough. It's really hard to get the nut to engage. I checked the manual. I looked for other ways to mount it. I couldn't find anything. The nut kept wanting to mount on slightly crooked, which would strip it out. So finally I struck upon the idea of, let's use a clamp to compress the gasket, which worked really well, gave me just enough distance to be able to tighten the nut. And I was able to then start putting all 4 of them on. So it worked pretty good. It took a little bit on this first one to kind of figure it out and get it to start threading properly. But once I got it going good, then all 4 of them went on really smooth. Connecting the bag is pretty easy. You literally just put it on. It's got a little tie strap so you can tie it to kind of hold it in place. And then there's a metal clamp. Obviously you screw that down, that helps lock it in. So I went ahead and slipped that over, tightened it up, and it stayed in place as expected. Again, I would have preferred a 1 micron bag, not a 2, but you know, better than nothing. The hose attaches on the input, pretty straightforward, just slip it on, same little metal clamp. And the unit itself has a off, on, and remote switch. So of course first I tried it in just a simple on position, and it did exactly what I expected it to do. I then flipped it to the remote position, got the remote, hit the on button, and nothing happened. So I took the remote apart and found out that there's no battery in there. A lot of digging around, looked in the manual, looked online, really couldn't find anything that said what battery, so I just took a guess at a 2032, which looked to be about the size, and thankfully that did fit. So I went ahead and slipped in that battery. Once it was in there, it just snaps back together, pretty straightforward, and I imagine being a remote, the battery will last you many years. Fired it right up, made sure the switch was in the remote position, hit the on button, and it turned on as expected. It does have a pretty long, it's actually a pretty soft startup and then a pretty long wind down. So it does take a little while for the bag to deflate or on startup inflate, but it seems to be a nice soft start, which for a tool of this price was pretty impressive. I looked at a lot of them out there, and these all appear to be the same, more or less design, more or less the same style. Fairly big range of pricing, and in this case I actually saved a little bit by finding a discount code online when I ordered it, and I got it direct from Bucktool. Specs are pretty straightforward. 1 horsepower motor, about 550 CFM, 6.5 amp draw, so not too large. The bag itself is not the largest, but I mean, if you empty it on occasion, it shouldn't be a problem. By the way, if you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Finally, then I actually tried it with cleaning up some of the dust on the floor and dust on the counter, and that all came up very easily. No problems. I can imagine hooked to a table saw or my combo planer joiner. It should have no problem pulling in just about all the chips and all the dust. So overall, I'm satisfied with the tool. Again, I would have liked a little better bag and a little better quality control, but in general, I think it's fair for the price.